31, Shane Mackley. The halves are 32, Tony Gould, and 33, Matthew Johns. And the forward pack, 39 is Wayne Thompson, 38, Paul Tideman, 37, Stephen Crowe, 35, Corey Edwards, 34, Brenton Pomery, and in jersey 46 is Steve Halen. And from South Sydney, the Rabbitohs President's Cup team, coached by Steve Sims, on 10 points in the Winfield Cup. Fullback 27 is Warren Ferguson. In 28, Mark Bacon. Number 50 is Nathan Woods. 30 is Mark Halcrow. 31, Vince Sibolka. 32 is Mitchell Maguire. 33, Derek Nielsen. The forwards are 39, Christian Lenton. 38, Darren Voss. In 43, Darren Hutchison. 36 is Peter Trevitt. 35, Peter Orr. And in jersey 49 is Rodney O'Brien. The referee for the President's Cup is S. Portsmouth. Touch judges in red, S. Clark, and in blue, O. Smith.
All players are on the paddock for this round 15 clash between the Newcastle Knights and the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Of course, it's President's Cup under 21 football. You've already heard on the over the on-ground microphone that the Newcastle Knights marginally in front of South Sydney on the competition table, and if the result back in 1989 is any sort of guide to this game, where the Newcastle Knights scored an absolutely sensational victory over the President's Cup South Sydney lineup down at the Sydney Football Stadium. I think from memory the score was 37-0 or 37-6, certainly a low score as far as South Sydney were concerned. And of course the problems surrounding the South Sydney club have been well documented in the last couple of weeks. A few new faces out there for the Newcastle Knights. Tony Gould having his first full run as Paul Tideman takes it up. Matthew Johns was a new player for Newcastle who we saw here a couple of weeks ago, and Newcastle making the first error, that mistake being made by Brenton Pomeray, who was unable to take the ball as he went across his own quarter line and lost the ball. South Sydney were unable to gain possession of it, and now the first scrum of the game being set by referee Mr. Scott Portsmouth. And it's a South Sydney scrum win as they head to the feet of the scrum, and Peter Orr comes up into the dummy half position, and he gives it away. Carting it up goes Darren Voss, and he goes up inside the Newcastle Knights quarter as again Orr moves into the dummy half position, and it's South Sydney getting on the attack for the first time in the game. They've got some players that they've had to call up as the first penalty of the game comes South Sydney's way. Rod O'Brien is one of the South Sydney players playing in the headgear, as too is Derek Nielsen. The decision has been made to take the penalty goal attempt, and I'll take a break while South Sydney come up to try and convert this penalty into 2 points. The first attempted goal of the afternoon is waved away. Warren Ferguson was the player that attempted to convert that into the 2 points for South Sydney, and he did manage to send the ball dead. So the Newcastle Knights to bring the ball back to the centre of the quarterway line for a restart. No score in the game, and Ferguson's missed 1 from 1 as the dropout is taken. It goes back down towards the South Sydney quarter. Vince Sibolka was unable to pick the ball up. He allowed it to bounce back behind him and then collected the football and headed back towards the quarterway line. South Sydney inside their own end of the paddock and with the job of trying to get out of there as Nielsen has met in some very solid Newcastle defence and thrown to the terra firma. And Again, South Sydney just trying to grind their way through. Nielsen looks as though he could be the acting captain out there today. He's doing a lot of the organising. The ball goes back to Ferguson. It's put on the toe. It goes into Newcastle Knights territory. It bounced 10 metres inside Newcastle Knights territory and then bounced down towards their own goal line. Eventually it's collected by Mackley, about 18 metres out from his own line. Met and thrown to ground by the South Sydney defence, led by Mark Halcrow. The ball is played and the Knights go up over the corner. Going to ground with it there was Jeff Walters, and Walters makes it just outside his own end of the field and gets now the Knights up to about 32 metres out from their own line. Is running onto the ball as Halen. It wasn't a good pass. It came off his shoulder. It was then knocked on by another Newcastle Knights player. I believe it was Matthew Johns who was trying to tidy things up for the Knights. Referee has ordered that the second scrum of the afternoon be set. And again, Derek Nielsen will be called upon to work the scrum for the South Sydney Rabbits. The ball's in the scrum. Eventually it comes back out Nielsen's way, delivers it away to Maguire, and Maguire heads up towards the quarter. Eventually meeting good defence from Johns. He gets to his feet and plays it, and now South Sydney just trying to go out from inside to get inside the Newcastle Knights quarter. Is getting to his feet goes Christian Lenton, and South Sydney now 18 metres out from the Newcastle Knights line. A swarm of Newcastle Knights defenders there. Breton Pomeroy leading the defence on that occasion. Now it goes back through the hands of Nielsen. He's certainly going to do the organising. Peter Trevette was met and thrown to ground. 18 metres out from the Newcastle Knights line as he gets to his feet to play it. They come the narrow, the blind way, South Sydney. A nice ball that was going away to Rod O'Brien. He knocked it on in the final analysis. Stephen Storey tidied up for the Knights, and danger gone, at least for this set of 6 for the Henny Penny Knights. Damien Driscoll in from the wing, doing a little bit of work from the forwards, and now picking the ball up, Shane Mackley in from the other wing. He's up to 15 metres out from his own line. He takes the tackle, and now the ball is played. It goes back to Tideman. He likewise had to wait on the football. He turned behind him and collected it. Corey Edwards, of course, is in there doing the organising at the dummy half today as the last tackles quickly come up for the Newcastle Knights. Undoubtedly the kick will be on. It goes back. Pressure tried to be brought to bear. Not a good kick from the Knights, although it makes it to the halfway mark and before it bounces into the hands of Vince Sabulka. He's met by the defence of the Knights, about 4 or 5 metres into Newcastle Knights territory, and he has his progress halted. That's a replacement play. That's Nathan Woods, of course, on out there in 50. He did start the game for South Sydney, and now, well, a bit of bad luck there for South Sydney. The ball should have been held to shore by Peter Raw. It bounced out of his grasp, and Newcastle Knights back in possession of the football 6 metres from the halfway mark as it goes away to Halen. Halen up to the halfway mark, met and thrown to ground by the South Sydney defence. Edwards. Ball. Eventually the referee has called that back of the view that it had gone forward to the Newcastle Knights player as the third scrum of the afternoon is being set. Just trying to see if we've got video on the video channel here. The first monitor, not as clear as one would like it, as again the scrum has worked. Again the referee not happy with the feed from Derek Nielsen, and again he asked Nielsen to work the scrum again. This time it's come out against the feed. The Newcastle Knights have possession of the football. They're just inside South Sydney territory as Wayne Thompson was able to link up with some support, and the Knights heading down the paddock. Again it's Thompson, 15 metres into South Sydney territory. Back to Halen. Halen, 27 metres out from the South Sydney line. Met and thrown to ground by Darren Voss. Back through the hands of Johns, and Johns then gives it to Gould. Gould able to link up with Brunker. Brunker standing in the tackle, couldn't get the pass away to the support. Again the Knights, as Gould from the dummy half position gives it back to Crow. A nice ball back inside to Tideman. Tideman tries to get the ball away. He does to Brunker. Brunker in turn to Johns. Johns puts it on the toe. It bounces into the chest of Sabulka. He juggles the ball for a second, then takes possession of it for the Rabbits, and met by the Newcastle defence just short of the quarter-way line. Warren Ferguson up from the fullback position. Goes about 15 metres straight across the paddock. Penalty will be forthcoming. It's against Stephen Halen. Failing to get off the tackle player quickly enough, and a relieving penalty as far as the South Sydney side are concerned, trapped in their own end of the paddock. And Warren Ferguson will come up and send the ball into touch as I'll take a break. After the kick, it's South Sydney inside the Knights territory by a couple of metres as it goes back through the hands of Nielsen. He's organising the runners. That was Christian Lenton who you saw steaming onto the ball for the South Sydney side. He gets to his feet and play it. Orr puts in the little chip from the dummy half position. Oh, beautifully placed kick. It bounced into touch around about 18 metres from the Newcastle Knights line. The feed, of course, with the Newcastle Knights halfback Matthew Johns. We have a touch judge in from both sides of the field to make their reports. Those touch judges being Mr. S. Clark and Mr. O. Smith. We'll take a break while Scott Portsmouth holds court. Very clear on the video as to what the touch judges were reporting on. An incident, I believe it was Brenton Pomeroy who came in late in the tackle. You saw it on your screen. The referee will go to replay again. Just gave the caution that it's on this tackle here that is made. The last man in, coming in with the elbow, and the referee has given the caution. No action taken. A Newcastle Knights player down injured on the ground just out of screen at the moment as the Knights go up the paddock through Stephen Crowe and then through Corey Edwards. But there is a Newcastle Knights player down in back play and in plenty of trouble, I believe, although he's trying to get to his feet now. The kick's come in. It's gone back. It's been fielded by Vince Zabilka, and he is met by the Newcastle Knights defence 32 metres out from his own line. That player that I told you about is back on his feet. It is Stephen Halen, and he's jogging back to position, so he looks to be reasonably okay, although we now have warming up on the sideline in jumper number 36, Craig Potter. So we'll see what happens there for the Knights. Halen again looks to be in trouble as he comes to the western touchline, and very shortly we're going to see Craig Potter going on the field, and Stephen Halen doesn't look at all well. Back to the action. South Sydney have the football just inside Newcastle Knights territory, right in the centre of the ground. It goes back, put on the toe by Nielsen. A nicely placed kick. It bounces away. Going to come back. Went into touch, said the referee. I thought he was going to allow play to continue as it went back into the arms of Damien Driscoll. And yet another scrum to be set 15 metres out from the Newcastle Knights line as Craig Potter, I should say, receives some words of advice from the referee. Stephen Halen being assisted to the dressing sheds down the tunnel now. It's a Newcastle Knights scrum win. Matthew Johns, 15 metres out, picking it up. First touch of the ball, Craig Potter up to the quarter. Brunker, a nice ball away. It's with Shane Mackley. Mackley 12 metres out from the halfway mark as a little flick pass back from Stephen Storey. Sees the Knights head towards halfway. No score in the game. 11 minutes of playing time elapsed. And Stephen Crowe storms over the halfway mark. Last tackle's come up for the Knights. It goes back to the clearing kick. Thompson gets himself in a bit better position to put the kick in. It bounces down, back to the goal line. Fielded there by Mark Bacon and met by the Newcastle defence 8 metres out from his own line. South Sydney run the ball up. Taking it forward there was Nathan Woods. 12 metres from his own try line. He'll play it. Nippy from the dummy half position goes Derek Nielsen, and Nielsen just short of the quarter. Pretty scrappy old play the ball. Newcastle Knights end up with it through very quick thinking from Corey Edwards, and certainly the best scoring opportunity for the Knights. They've got 4 tackles remaining, and they're 12 metres out from the South Sydney try line as it goes back to Tideman. Tideman dances. He won't get away from the tackle there of Peter Trevitt. Tideman permitted to get to his feet and play it. It goes through the hands of Johns. He dummies to kick, then looks for the runners, delivers it to Wayne Thompson, but Thompson met by the defence about 8 metres out. Stephen Story picks the ball up. He heads centre ground and he's felled 6 metres from the South Sydney line. The little chip kick across the face of the goal. It bounces on the ground. Newcastle Knights very nearly coming up with a point there. The points there, well covered by Vince Sabulka, and well, he did the right thing for the South Sydney side and getting possession of the football. Now the penalty forthcoming to the South Sydney side. While the kick's taken, if we've got an opportunity, we'll go to replay to have a look at what was very nearly a 4-pointer for the Newcastle Knights. Just the kick, straight across the paddock from Corey Edwards. And as I told you, the work there from Vince Sabulka to take the kick and stop the Newcastle Knights putting first points on the board. We're back live again now. The Rabbits are 33 out from their own line. And the defence of the Knights up very, very quickly. Through Nielsen again. Shows it and finds a runner. That was Darren Voss, I believe, who took that tackle. And now the little chip kick put through and chased by Mitchell Maguire. It bounces away from the arms of Stephen Story. He watches it over the eastern touchline. And again, we have a touch judge on, Mr. Smith, from the far side of the ground. I'll take a break. Referee, Mr. Portsmouth, not happy with the working of the scrum from Matthew Johns. It's again fed again, and again it comes out the Newcastle Knights way. Johns quick hands to Gould. Gould able to link up with the support out wide of Jeff Walters, but Walters met and thrown to ground. Now taking it forward for the Knights goes Thompson, and Thompson up around about 18 metres from the halfway mark as the ball delivered back inside. The Knights trying to keep it alive. A strong run here from Corey Edwards, and Edwards taken around the bootlaces and hauled it just short of the halfway mark. The ball is going back through the hands of Johns. Johns a cut-out pass that delivered the ball away to Stephen Crow. Crow trying to get a pass back behind him was unsuccessful in that endeavour. It goes to Gould. A very good kick from Gould. It bounces down, getting back to try and cover it before it goes into touch as Vince Sabulka. He got a kind bounce in the end and took the ball and was then taken in very solid defence from the Newcastle Knights. And one of the first tacklers up there again was the player that put the kick in, Tony Gould. And good to see that there's some good consistent chasing here from the Newcastle Knights early on in this game. Derek Nielsen goes centre ground with the football. He's fell just over his own quarter and now picking the ball up. And going for a run up the paddock is Lenton, and Lenton is in the centre of the ground. He's allowed to get to his feet. In fact, that was Mark Bacon in from the far wing. So Bacon obviously playing it a little bit closer than where he's positioned, or at least coming in and looking for the work. The ball goes back as given to Warren Ferguson. Ferguson puts the ball on the toe. It bounces just near the Knights' quarter, then heads towards the try line. Is pursued and fielded by Matthew Johns, who loses the ball in the tackle, and then a knock on as a pass was coming away from a South Sydney player, was all but intercepted by Damien Driscoll. And we'll go to replay here because this could have spelt danger with a capital D for the Newcastle Knights. Danger with a capital D. Now there's the kick. Matthew Johns went back. He had it covered okay. He had the football, tried to swap hands with it as he came into the tackle. He lost it, and I can honestly tell you it was only the work of Driscoll that stopped the try. We're back live. The danger isn't gone. South Sydney have won the scrum. They're in possession of the football, and they're hard on the attack. They're only about 6 metres out from the Newcastle Knights line. Ball's loose on the ground. It's been picked up on the volley by Nielsen. He looked to get the pass away. He couldn't do so. They're still on the attack, South Sydney. Coming around with it is Orr. Orr heading towards the line. He's only centimetres short, Peter Orr. He gets to his feet and plays it. The ball goes back. Deciding to run himself there was Trevitt. He likewise couldn't link up and get support. South Sydney on the attack. The Knights having to defend grimly. South Sydney looking good with the football. Coming across the base. The quick hands went away to replacement player Rod O'Brien, and he is in for the first 4-pointer of this round 15 clash between South Sydney and the Newcastle Knights. And all this coming from the error from Matthew Johns as we go to replay. They were looking good with the football, South Sydney. The defence of the Knights was stretched, and it was eventually just a matter of who was going to line up and get the football. It went away to Rod O'Brien, and he dived over for the first four-pointer in the game in the 18th minute. I'll take a break while Warren Ferguson comes up for his second attempted goal of the afternoon. Warren Ferguson has the ball placed about 15 metres in from the western touchline, about 8 centimetres over the quarter-way line. His second attempted goal of the afternoon. He strikes it, looks good in the air, just away to the left of the uprights. The score unaltered at 4-0. The Rabbits over the Knights, as again we go to the replay of the Rod O'Brien try, as the Knights were being called to get off that player. A pass that cut out 2 players, delivered to O'Brien, and as easy as you like for 4 points. Play again got underway by Stephen Storey, and the Rabbitohs with their tails up. Nielsen, net and throw into ground. Up over their own quarter they go. Mark Bacon, 34 out from his own line, has taken around the bootlaces. Gets up, penalty. Mark Bacon, of the view that he wasn't marked, got up and went again. Should have played the ball back, says the referee. And the decision taken from the Newcastle Knights right in front of the sticks, 34 out from their own line to take the penalty goal attempt. Now there's the tackle. No doubt the marker was there. Referee certainly of the view, and then Bacon getting backslammed into the ground just as the penalty was given. Coming up to attempt this penalty goal for the Knights is Adrian Brunker. It's right in front, as I told you. It's 35 out from the South Sydney posts. A slight breeze blowing across the ground. If you're inside looking at the screen, I suppose from looking at the screen it would be blowing from the bottom of the screen to the top as Brunker comes in, strikes it. Touch judges don't move. It's successful. The scoreline now at the 20th minute mark. First half, the Rabbits 4 lead the Newcastle Knights on 2, 1 from 1 to Adrian Brunker. Well, Adrian Brunker, the player that really had a horror start to the season in 1990 with injury after injury, and this was the ground where he appeared to get most of them, is back in this President's Cup side, and he's got the Knights on the board. Got a great boot, Brunker. A very large lad. Certainly highly thought of by the Newcastle Knights selection panel, and they've got big things in mind for Adrian Brunker. As up over the quarterway line goes Paul Tideman. Met and thrown to ground. South City defence keen now to do the work. No runners there as Corey Edwards came from the dummy half position and took the tackle. Johns delivers it back to Crow. Crow looking to get the pass away, beautifully wrapped up and thrown to ground before he could do so. Ball now goes back. It'll be the clearing kick. This time it's put on the toe and goes well downfield, beautifully fielded by Warren Ferguson. He had to get back and take it over his own shoulder. He comes up, tries to break the first line of defence, that of Jeff Walters. He eventually is able to link up out wide and get the pass away as the South Sydney side come back up over the halfway. They've turned defence into attack very quickly, South Sydney, and going to ground. Mark Halcrow takes the tackle. Halcrow now gets to his feet and plays it. South Sydney are on a bit of a roll. They're trying to find a way through the Newcastle Knights defence as Mitchell Maguire straightens up the attack. He's 10 metres into the Knights' territory. It goes back now through Nielsen, and Nielsen delivers it away to Voss. Voss, though, met by the defence and thrown to ground. Peter Orr, the dummy half. They go down the blind as South Sydney are now met, and no room there. Very quick, good defence by a swarm of Newcastle Knights defenders. Driven backwards. Now the penalties forthcoming as Darren Hutchison, referee had obviously called upon Darren Hutchison to play the ball. Again, the caution given for a second tackle, failing to allow the player to get to his feet quickly enough and play the football. And again, we have a touch judge in. On this occasion, it's Mr. Clark from the western side of the ground. And Newcastle Knights player that is receiving a caution is Wayne Thompson. Obviously Stephen Crow, the captain, is up to listen to the caution for Thompson. The penalty, of course, has already been forthcoming to the South Sydney side. Just making a decision as to the right choice. Ferguson comes up, takes the kick, finds touch. 27 out from the Knights line. Second kick about to be taken. It is by Peter Orr. Delivers it away to Sabilka. And Sabilka hauled it 18 metres from the Knights line. To the dummy half position again as Orr. First runner had to wait on it. A little run round movement. Eventually Rod O'Brien, the try scorer, took the ball and the tackle. Again it's Orr. Again a rehearsed move that sees the South Sydney Rabbits going down the blind side. Solid tackle. Christian Lenton met the ground, 10 metres out from the Newcastle Knights line. Back through Nielsen. Nielsen to Maguire. Maguire tries to roll out of a tackle. Can't get away from the defence of Stephen Crow. Into the dummy half position again as Orr. It goes away. Jackled there by Nielsen. He still kept the ball alive. Now a chip to the in goal. The race is on. Well sent into touch by Damien Driscoll. I thought for a fleeting moment that Derek Nielsen was going to have the speed to win the race for the football. And 4-pointer number 2 was coming up for the Rabbits. If we get an opportunity to have a look on replay, we do. There's the kick from Nielsen. Driscoll beats him to the football and sends the ball dead in goal. Goal line dropout is taken. Hit on the fingers by Hutchison. It goes back behind him. He picks the football up and now runs straight into the defence of Adrian Brunker. Hutchison will get to his feet. Sabilka in the dummy half position goes down a narrow blind. He's pursued by Brunker and runs head on into Driscoll, driven to ground. He's just 27 metres out from the Knights line as again Souths try and mount themselves for another attack on the Newcastle Knights line. They're going to use the back line. They're deep. They probably should have kept the ball going. They didn't. Ferguson was caught centre ground and is now called upon to play the football. Or running around to make the extra man, delivers it away to O'Brien. O'Brien, though, called upon to play the ball as again Souths go forward. They head towards the quarter. Or to the dummy half. Last tackles come up for the Rabbits. It'll be put high in the air on this occasion by Nielsen. Bouncing has gone dead. Actually on the full, so no pressure for Stephen Storey in the final wrap-up. And the Newcastle Knights to bring the football back to their own quarter line for the restart. A good 12 or so metres made on the first of 6, and now looking for some free yardage. The nippy Stephen Storey is met and thrown to ground 8 metres from the halfway mark as the Newcastle Knights try and get themselves down into South Sydney territory. They want to get into the Rabbits end of the ground. It goes back through Matthew Johns, and Matthew Johns away to Pomeroy. He couldn't get the pass back, Pomeroy, and is now comes to the halfway mark where he plays the ball. It's away to Crow on the boil. Crow just makes it up into South Sydney territory before he's upended and thrown to ground. Now it goes back to Thompson. The ball is put on the toe. It bounces down the paddock, straight into the arms of Sabilka. He fields the football, heads centre ground, and is driven to ground in a good Adrian Brunker tackle. Ferguson just going towards the centre of the ground in his own end of the paddock. Darren Voss. And a kick from South Sydney to get it out of their own end of the paddock. The winger Driscoll up in the line. No problems at all for Stephen Storey. He follows it down and collects it near his own quarter. Comes back up, beats the first two tackles from South Sydney. Won't beat the tackle of Nielsen right round the bootlaces. Plays it. There's some free yardage there for Driscoll as he heads up over the halfway mark. The Knights have taken the ball very quickly back into South Sydney territory. Is looking for room and going forward with it. A strong run from Mackley. He couldn't get the pass away in the final analysis. Now it goes back to Pomeray, boiling onto the football. He's hauled it, loses the ball in the tackle. Penalties coming to the Newcastle Knights. It's against the South Sydney player, and for being offside looks to be the ruling. And there's no doubt in my mind that Adrian Brunker, who was successful with 1 from 1 this afternoon, will be called upon to try and put this penalty to 2 points, which, if he's successful in that endeavour, will tie things up at 4-all on the Sports Centre. I'll take a break. Adrian Brunker has the football placed for his second attempt of the afternoon. Comes in, strikes it. It's unsuccessful. He managed to send it dead okay. And again, the Knights will get the opportunity to get the football back. The scoreline unaltered at 4-2, the Rabbits' way. 29 minutes of playing time gone in the first half. The dropout taken by Ferguson. Oh, not a good one, and beautifully fielded on that occasion by Craig Potter. And Potter gets straight on the attack for the Knights. He's 32 out. Now the Knights pick it up. They go from the dummy half position. That player on that occasion was Jeff Walters. He took the tackle. Now it goes back. They're looking for the big men. Pomeray had to wait on the football. He didn't have to wait on meeting the ground because the South Sydney defence were up on him very, very quickly. Now it'll go away. Looking from the dummy half position goes Edwards. I thought the ball was going to Crow. The South Sydney players didn't fall for it. They were quickly there to tackle Edwards. The ball goes across. Gould switches it back and gives it to Johns. Johns up 18 metres out from the South Sydney line. The last tackle comes up for the Newcastle Knights. It again goes back to Gould. He puts it on the toe. Ferguson fielded it beautifully right on his own line. Is met by the Newcastle Knights defence about a yard from his own try line and plays the football. Pretty scrappy stuff there from South Sydney. And Newcastle now with the job of endeavouring to hold them inside their own quarter, the Rabbits, as Nielsen took the first of those tackles. Newcastle defence up fairly quickly. Zabulka will get to his feet and play it. Peter Trevitt. Last tackle quickly has come up for South Sydney. A good kick from Ferguson, able to dissect Shane Mackley and Stephen Storey. Mackley has to wait on it, then picks it up and is met by the South Sydney defence before making it back to the halfway mark. Storey from the dummy half position, picks it up and goes centre ground. Taken right round the bootlaces, Nielsen. He's been a real thorn in the side of the Newcastle Knights today, Derek Nielsen. He's been in everything, but here's a big run from the Newcastle Knights through Jeff Walters. Walters comes, collects the football again, dives over, try-time Knights. Well, the individual skills of Jeff Walters have shone here as we go to replay. The ball goes away there to Walters. He put the pedal down, he came to the fullback, chipped over, collected the football and dived over for a try to put the Knights into the lead at the 31st minute mark of the first half. The score, 6 points to 4. Kick to come from Adrian Brunker, and I'll take a break. Adrian Brunker guides it over. The scoreline now sees the Knights 8. Lead the South Sydney Rabbits on 4. Again the replay of the try. The individual skills here of Jeff Walters. He came to the fullback. He put in the chip. He collected it brilliantly, and there was a swarm of South Sydney defenders attempting to pull him to ground. Were unable to do so, and Jeff Walters goes over, as I said, to send the Knights to a 4-point lead over the Rabbits. Adrian Brunker's kick, you saw on screen, was successful, and we've got only about 2.5 minutes of time remaining before the half-time break. Always a critical time in these President Cup games. A side have just scored a try to put them into the lead. They've got to receive the football from the kick-off. They can't make a mistake, because if they do, it's going to give South Sydney virtually a free opportunity to score some points before the half-time siren sounds, when they shouldn't really have possession of the football in this end of the paddock. Tideman, taken in the second of 6 by the South Sydney defence, just short of the quarter. Pomeray, up over the quarter line for the Knights. In the dummy half position, Edwards goes himself, makes it up to 10 metres from the halfway mark before he likewise is thrown to ground. Potter, just going out from the dummy half position, makes it to nearly halfway. Last kick will be coming up for the Knights. Thompson has himself positioned for the kick. He puts it in. He stabs it down towards the quarterway line, towards the western touchline. It's fielded by Sabilka. Sabilka comes up, makes it up over his own quarter. Newcastle Knights defence come to him and meet him. 27 metres out from his own line. No room there for the Rabbits. It was Nielsen again. Into the dummy half position goes Orr. Ball loose. Newcastle Knights back in possession of it after a South Sydney error through Potter. Edwards, and then away to Stephen Crowe. Crowe trying to get the pass back. He does to Edwards. Edwards up towards the quarter with a strong run. We're in the final minute of the first half, by my clock at least. As the Knights go over the quarter. Again Edwards to the dummy half. Gives it back. Quick hands away now to Thompson. Thompson keeps it alive. Gives it back to Johns. Johns, quick hands, gave it away to Gould. Gould, a lovely time pass that's gone back inside. And the Newcastle Knights have run in the try. And the try scorer, number 2, is it? For Jeff Walters. Very difficult it is. Number 2 for Jeff Walters. Very difficult to tell them apart, Jeff Walters and Adrian Brunker. But it's try number 2 from Jeff Walters. He's the try scorer. But I don't know who you're going to give credit to for making the try. Tony Gould had plenty to do with it, because he drew the defence and held it up. But if we can go to a longer replay rather than staying with the kick, you'll see that Tony Gould is one of only many that could be credited with the great lead-up work for try number 2 for Jeff Walters. Here's the long replay. Now, it went through a few sets of hands. It went to Johns. Now, Johns sent it back to Thompson. Thompson kept it alive, back to Johns. Johns drew some defence. He delivered it to Gould. Gould put the speed on. He drew the defence. He delivered it away to Jeff Walters, and he couldn't believe his luck. He's run in 2 tries in 6 minutes, and Brunker has it placed for attempt number 4 of the afternoon. Strikes it, guides it over. There was never any doubt. And the scoreline now, as the siren goes for half-time, sees the Knights 14, lead Souths on 4, as again we go to the replay. Matthew Johns had plenty to do with it, as too did Tony Gould with a beautiful pass away to Walters. And try number 2 for Jeff Walters as we go to Oranges with the Knights leading 14-4 over the Rabbits.
Newcastle back on the field for the second half of the President's Cup. The Knights leading 14 points to 4 over South Sydney, and there are no changes in the Knights
Take them right, boss. Take all the forwards right, okay? You look close. Good, sir. Yeah, get involved with it. Gary, what side are you on? Right, forward, right, forward, right.
Number 48, Sydney is Wayne Roberts.
Play back underway for the second half of this reserve grade encounter between the Newcastle Knights and the South Sydney Rabbits. The Knights have gone to the half-time break, as you would have seen on the screen, at 14 points to 4 after a couple of late tries to Jeff Walters. And Adrian Brunker has had a great day so far with the boot, been successful with 3 goals from only 4 attempts. For the South Sydney side, Rod O'Brien, one of the players that was actually called into this game late today. There's a mistake coming from the Newcastle Knights, gives an opportunity to the South Sydney side. But the Knights defence able to regroup, and South's unable to take a great deal of advantage. I was telling you that Rod O'Brien scored a try, and he was a very late call-up for this game from the South Sydney side. And as yet, Warren Ferguson, no joy with the boot, as errors coming again from South Sydney have seen the football back in the possession of the Knights. Brenton Pomeroy. Into the dummy half position goes Corey Edwards. And then straight up the centre is Paul Tideman. Met by the defence there, that was O'Brien who was involved in that tackle. And then Potter. Again it's Edwards. Adrian Brunker beating 2 tackles. Couldn't beat the third Brunker as he was off down the eastern touchline. Back, the kick coming from the boot there of Thompson. Well fielded though, and South Sydney turning defence into attack. Centre ground. That was Dwayne Roberts who took that tackle. He's a replacement player on out there for the South Sydney side in jumper number 48. In the fullness of time, it may become evident who he's replaced. We'll stay live now as Mark Bacon takes the tackle just short of the halfway mark, and now Halcrow picks the ball up and goes centre ground. Halcrow getting to his feet now. Second tackle. Penalty will come, mate, no doubt about it. No good putting your head in the air there, and your hands in the air there, Brenton Pomeroy. You've got a caution for it before. This time the referee, Mr. Portsmouth, has said, you don't want to get off them, you can have 5 minutes in the sin bin to think about it. Yes. As the kick is taken by Ferguson, an opportunity here now for South Sydney while the Knights are playing a man short to get some points on the board, and they're just on 30 metres out from the Newcastle Knights line as Bacon takes the first tackle. Into the dummy half position goes Hutchison. Shows it, then goes back to the try scorer. We've got a couple of run-round movements here, South, that would mix up most broadcasters. It's fairly hard to work out who's going to receive the football. They produce it again. On that occasion, it was Lenton who took the tackle. Now a juggling act there from Nielsen. I don't think that was part of the rehearsed move. Is again going to the dummy half position as Hutchison, switches it back. Now Ferguson in the line. Defence from the Knights very quickly up there on Halcrow. Halcrow asked to play the football. Ball loose on the ground. A little chip and chase from Maguire. Able to regather. Ball alive. Now it's gone back to the Newcastle Knights. He's been penalised for being in an offside position. And I'd like to have a look at that on the replay, because I have my doubts. Someone's had something to say to the referee about this, but we'll go to replay before we make a comment. Now South Sydney have the football. They still have the football, Souths. Ball is back. Hasn't gone near a Newcastle player yet. The chip over the top. Came off a South player last here, though. It came off a South player last there. I'll go to replay again. Someone's just had a look at the screen here. Ferguson's coming up for attempted goal. As again we go to replay. Now South have the football. Goes back. Still with Souths. Newcastle player touches it there. It's back with Souths. And the referee is saying that the football has come off the arm of Craig Potter. Well, I've got someone in the box here who agrees with me. If that's totally evident on the video, I will be surprised, but I'm not going to bag the referee. He was a lot closer than I was. And Warren Ferguson has been called upon for his third attempt of the afternoon, comes in, strikes it, unsuccessful. He left the kicking boots at home today, Warren Ferguson. None from 3 for Warren Ferguson, but South Sydney again to receive the football. Well, that's the only player that could have touched the ball for the Knights, Craig Potter. You had a look at it on the replay. The referee was close to the action, and he adjudicated upon it. As I said, there was someone here in the box with me in total agreement with his decision, as the tackle on Derek Nielsen drives him backwards. Again into the dummy half position, Hutchison. Having to wait on it there, Maguire, and the Newcastle Knights defence very quickly up on him on that occasion. Ball as South Sydney try and go hard up the centre through Peter Trevitt. Now again it's back to Nielsen. He delivers it to Maguire. Maguire goes over halfway for Souths. We've got a few players here that look similar, and I'm sure that that wasn't Maguire on my second view. Him taken around the bootlaces was Rod O'Brien. And now the kick from Nielsen finds touch 18 metres out from the Newcastle Knights line. The feed will be with the Newcastle half, Matthew Johns. Player that I incorrectly identified for you there as Mitchell Maguire was Christian Lenton. Just to keep things accurate, or as accurate as we can, as it's a Newcastle Knights scrum win through way of Nielsen up to the quarter. Now Stephen Storey goes across the centre of the ground, tries to straighten up, can't get away from Nielsen. Corey Edwards still going forward, eventually halted 10 metres from the halfway mark, called upon to play it. Brunker. Johns. Back then to Crow, back inside to Johns. Johns loses the football. South Sydney have it. Playing it now, Maguire. Nathan Woods. As Souths are now 10 metres inside Newcastle Knights territory. Hutchison back through Nielsen. Nielsen in turn finds a runner. Steaming onto it was Vince Sabulka. Again, the try scorer goes up the centre, and now Souths have themselves into a bit of space. Storey's coming across. He steps back inside. Going to not award the try here, the referee. He's going to call that Christian Lenton has been penalised for a double movement. As we go to the replay, the pass is held up here for Lenton. He finds himself in some space. He stepped back inside Storey. Well, I'd like to have another look at it if we can. The Knights are back. I don't know that the arm carrying the ball ever actually touched the ground short of the try line. They're very difficult decisions for mine. The double movement penalties comes. It did actually catch the ground about a foot short of the try line, and probably for mine it was a good decision from the referee. Back now, clearing kick from the boot of Thompson. Just for those of you that are interested, Stephen Halen, the player who was injured in the opening minutes of this game for the Newcastle Knights, has been taken to hospital. He has an injury in the hip region, and there's some grave concern for that part of Stephen Halen. It's nothing life-threatening, of course, but a little bit an injury there to Stephen Halen, and he's been transported to hospital. For any of those of you that are listening around the ground and were concerned as to Stephen's state of being. The kick, well fielded by Storey, and then met by the defence a couple of metres out from his own 22-metre line. He'll play the ball back. Shane Mackley takes the tackle. Now Brunker. Centre ground is met and thrown to ground by Nielsen. 10 minutes of time gone in the second half as Thompson takes the football up towards the halfway mark. Back now to the boot of Orr. Only the second time I can recall him kicking in the game. Again, it was a good kick. Getting back to cover it as Bacon comes to the first line of Newcastle Knights defence. Oh, nice tackle there from Gould. Again, I remember in the first half when he produced one of his kicks, he was one of the first chasers up in the line. He's done it again in the second half. South Sydney. Nothing fancy from Bacon as he goes over his own quarter. Christian Lenton, 32 out from his own line. Back now to Nielsen, under some pressure, gets the kick in. This time the pressure is paid off for the Newcastle Knights. It sailed out over the western touchline on the full. And the scrum to be brought back and set just outside the South Sydney quarter. And the feed with Matthew Johns. Got a Newcastle Knights player warming up on the sideline. We'll tell you more about that later as the ball's with Gould. Gould to Mackley. Mackley into some space. Nice ball back to the dual try scorer so far, Jeff Walters. Walters plays it. Thompson. 18 metres out from the south line. Crow. Back now to Storey. Storey in some space. Storey towards the line. Just taken by the jumper. Gets to his feet and plays it. Ball goes back to Pomeray. Back from the sin bin. Loses the ball in the tackle. And that was a sin. A sin for the Knights. South Sydney. As Halcrow goes up 10 metres out from his own line. Fights to get to his feet. Ferguson. Coming across, trying to find himself in some space there was Nielsen. As they're trapped in their own end of the paddock. A nice ball back. South go up over the quarter. Strong run there from Hutchison. Kick. Going to be well fielded by Storey. Comes back to the centre of the ground. Can't get away from a Mark Bacon tackle. And Bacon chips the ball through. Loses the race for the football though, as Paul Tideman comes up for possession for the Knights. An interesting change here. Jeff Woodward has come onto the paddock, but he's replaced Craig Potter. And Potter, of course, went out to replace Halen in the front row. So I don't know what the reshuffle will be. Undoubtedly, we will work that out the first time a scrum is set as the Knights go up inside enemy territory again. Well, a dummy to kick there from Thompson, and then he delivered the ball out wide to Driscoll. Driscoll, though. Now, he's called here that pass was forward, has he? He has. And he's ruled the handover. I'd love to go to replay. Well, he did call it back straight away, the referee. Gee, it was 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Again, better position than I. It's just a little to the right of our camera angle and doesn't tell you anything conclusively. Here's a second look at it. A look pretty line ball, but the referee a lot closer than us. He's on the slightly different angle, and he has said that the pass travelled forward. That's the decision that counts. And the scrum being set, 32 out from the line, as the player that has actually moved now into the forward pack from the previously playing on the wing is Shane Mackley, and he's now playing at lock forward. And South Sydney come up with the scrum win as they go towards the halfway mark. Into the dummy half position again goes Darren Hutchison. Back through Nielsen. Shows it and then eventually delivers it to Sabilka. Loses the ball in the tackle. The Knights back in possession. As the player that gained possession for the Knights is not too well, Tony Gould. He'll get back to his feet now. Newcastle, 10 metres into South Sydney territory. Paul Tideman. Still going Tideman, looking to get the pass away, couldn't do so. Into the dummy half position, Edwards. Back to Pomeroy. Just short of the quarter, the Knights. Back through Johns. Johns in turn gives it away to Gould. Gould back to Johns on the run round. Johns into a bit of space over the quarter. And a good run there from Matthew Johns. He's felled 18 metres out from the south line. Last tackle coming up for the Knights. Gould gives it away to Thompson under some pressure. Back, eventually it goes away to Woodward. The pass to Woodward was a shocker. It was on his fingertips. He knocked it on. And South Sydney back in possession. Well, they had a couple of kickers there. The Knights, no one could get their kick in, neither Thompson nor Tony Gould. And in the final wash-up, the error came and South Sydney back in possession. 32 out from their own line. A try scorer for them, Rod O'Brien, going up the paddock. Again, Hutchison to the dummy half position. He's run straight into a player that was not marking square on, is the decision of the referee, I believe. We'll have a look at the replay as the penalty's gone to the Knights. Well, he said that he's penalised the Knights player, said that he wasn't marking. He looked to be square on the screen. After the kick, South's inside the quarter on the attack. Oh, well, that was just terrible stuff there to Darren Voss. He absolutely was there for an eternity before the pass came away to him. I don't know whether he was actually supposed to receive the football, but he did. Here's another one against the feed to South Sydney, and an opportunity here for them. They're 15 metres out from the Newcastle Knights line. They've got 5 tackles in which to put it on. Going up the 10 metres out from the line is Peter de Trevette. He's kept it alive. Back to Nielsen. Nielsen met by the defence 8 metres out. South's on the attack. They need to get a try on the board if they're to get back into the game. As Sabulka goes up, he's 2 metres short, Sabulka, and he's pulled the ground by the Newcastle Knights defence. Gets to his feet, asked to play it. Does so. Hutchison tries to barge over from the dummy half position. Referee said he was held up. Referee said Darren Hutchison was held up. He's appealing. I can assure you that Darren Hutchison, that won't change the referee's decision. I'd like to have a look at the replay. As the scrum is being set, here's the replay. Hutchison tries to go over from the dummy half position. And referee of the view that he didn't get the ball down, but again they've won one against the feed. This is a try. I don't think we've got the replay, but we most certainly have a try scored by Christian Lenton for the South Sydney side. Unfortunately not on the replay, because we were attempting to give you a view of what was all but a try to Darren Hutchison. But there's a bit of trouble out there for the Knights at the minute. A bit of trouble. They can't win a scrum. And although they were winning them early in the game, and this is seeing South Sydney in the last few minutes of play have all the possession, and they've now been rewarded with a 4-pointer. And when you consider it, that if this kick's successful, that the Rabbitohs will only be 4 behind, and they've had 2 tries disallowed in the last 7 minutes of play, then there's plenty of football left in this game. A change in kicker for the South Sydney side has proved to be the correct decision. I believe it was Mark Bacon, and he has had his first attempt of the afternoon. The scoreline is 14-10, the Knights over the Rabbits. As we just check who that kicker was. It was Mark Bacon, as I suggested. 1 from 1 for Mark Bacon. And if Ferguson had brought his kicking boots, then the Knights wouldn't be leading the game. Restart with 16 minutes of play remaining. And an opportunity for South Sydney to pull this game from the fire. Lenton There goes Nielsen. The Souths have got Keane now to get involved. That was Roberts, the replacement player. That was Trevette. Inside Knights territory. Back for the kick from Ferguson. Puts it on the toe. Bouncing back. Woodward collects it near his own quarter. Comes up. Met in the first line of South Sydney defence and throw into ground. Walters. Plays it. Damien Driscoll. Back away now to Storey. I should say Shane Mackley. And now it's Stephen Storey. Storey into a bit of space. 12 metres now into South Sydney territory. Last tackle for the Knights. Goes back. Thompson puts the kick in. Well fielded though by Ferguson. Comes up. Can't get around the tackle of Gould. And is felled short of the quarterway line. Roberts. Free yardage from the dummy half. Made 10 metres. And now Nielsen. Made an additional 3 or 4. As the South Sydney players line up for the football. Voss. Back again for the kick. They want to play it in the Knights end of the field. Straight down the throat of Storey. Storey straight into a tackle of Trevette and can't get away from him. Strong run there from Johns, couldn't get the pass away, and he's felled 8 metres from the halfway mark. Quick hands, the Knights see it away with Brunker. Brunker delivered the ball to Driscoll. Driscoll back inside to Brunker. Brunker to the corner. Brunker to the 10-yard. Try! The Newcastle Knights have hit back through Adrian Brunker and Damien Driscoll. And Jeff Woodward was disappointed he didn't just receive the ball there. It firstly goes away. That's Brunker. Nice ball to Driscoll. Driscoll, a great ball back inside to Brunker. Brunker around Warren Ferguson with ease. And a good try to Adrian Brunker. Scored with plenty of assistance from Damien Driscoll. We'll take a break while Brunker places the ball for his 5th attempt at goal of the afternoon. Adrian Brunker has the ball placed for his 5th and most difficult attempt at goal of this afternoon. Comes in, strikes it. Well, there's one word for that one. It's a shocker. He's had a pretty good day with the boot. 3 from 5 for Brunker. I suppose he was still thinking about the try that he scored. The ball to Driscoll. Driscoll, a good, great ball back inside to Brunker. Brunker went round Warren Ferguson with ease and scored a great try. 12 minutes of playing time remaining. The Knights have extended their lead now and lead 18 points to 10 over the Rabbits. And I'd say prior to that try, it was fair to say, although they were trailing on the scoreboard, the Rabbits, that they really did have a sniff of victory. Down for Mackley, delivered away to Jeff Woodward. His first touch of the football this afternoon. As the Knights seem keen up after the Brunker try. Woodward throws the dummy, then takes on the defence. Looked to get the pass back inside. There was no one coming. Stephen Crow Up to the halfway mark. Into the dummy half position again, Edwards. Tideman. 3 or 4 metres into South territory. Last tackles come up for the Knights. Back for the kick. Put on the toe. Bounces down, 8 metres out and collected on the volley by Bacon. Bacon though, no room there for Bacon. Met it a good tackle from Woodward. Got up, Christian Lenton. Found no support. Said, I suppose I better cut it up to the advantage line. Maguire. As there appears to have been a replacement made out here for South Sydney that I hadn't noticed at the time. And I'll just try and see exactly what they've done here. But no, he's there all right. I thought for a fleeting moment that Derek Nielsen had left the paddock, but he's working the scrum for the Rabbits now. Knocked on there at the base of the scrum, or appeared to. Referee didn't agree. Said he knocked it back, and South Sydney have the football. Roberts, short of the halfway mark. O'Brien, just over that point. Again, Nielsen. Back to Maguire. Maguire trying to link up. Halcrow took the tackle. Plays it. Hutchison. 3 yardage he thought, but none there. As Souths through Sabulka go forward. Last tackle, says the referee, and asks that the ball be handed over. Stephen Storey stepped one way and found himself in a hole trying to get the pass back to Woodward, who slightly overran him, and that could have been a bit of trouble there for the Rabbits if the ball could have got away to the fleet-of-foot Jeff Woodward. Going back now through the hands to Pomeray, taken right round the bootlaces. Derek Nielsen was one of the tacklers. Ball kept alive, and again into some space. One of the dual try scorers there for the Knights. That one was Walters. Pomeray. Oh, one-handed pass. Well, he all but made it look brilliant, Matthew Johns. He just couldn't take it in the final wash-up, as we have a replacement player coming out there for South Sydney in jumper 47. It's Craig Fields. And not too sure who South have taken from the paddock. To be honest, I didn't exactly see him leave, although I look now and it was Darren Hutchison who's gone. Craig Fields on there in 47, penalty to the Rabbits. And Warren Ferguson coming up when the fullback position descended into touch. Touch is found, 11 metres into Newcastle Knights territory. The restart to be taken by the fresh player, Craig Fields. Takes it. Bacon meets the first line of Newcastle defence. The try scorer, O'Brien. No room there for Rod O'Brien. Fields. Back, and then eventually it's gone away to Trevitt. Trevitt able to keep the ball alive, and it goes back to Venton. The ball's still alive as South Sydney sent it across the back line. It's loose on the ground. Coming up with it for the Knights is Tony Gould, and he gets to his feet and plays it right on his own quarterway line. Gould will now move to the dummy half position. Damien Driscoll. Brunker. Edwards. Then Stephen Crow. 12 metres from the halfway mark. Back to Gould. Gould puts the ball on the toe. Mark Bacon has to watch it back behind him. Collects the football. Runs centre ground. Can't get away from the defence there of Jeff Walters. 11 out from his own line. He was halted. That's Roberts. Still going, Roberts, trying to find himself in some space. Got a nice ball away, Roberts, in the final wash-up. Mark Halcrow, a nice ball back inside. Back again to Roberts. Roberts has still got support on his inside. He delivered it away there to Fields. Fields down the touchline. He put it on the toe. Razzle-dazzle stuff from the Rabbits.
It came to no avail, but what a fine passage of play it was from them. They just kept the ball alive. They were working down a very narrow corridor on the western side of the ground. If we could go to a replay as the scrum is being set, they just kept it alive. He was in it on a number of occasions, Roberts. It went back inside. That player was Fields. He took the option for the kick. He was on the right foot. He probably should have looked to kick back infield with the left. He didn't. It went into touch, and the scrum is now set. Newcastle Knights feed and win the scrum through way of Matthew Johns. And a player gone on for South in jumper number 41 is Glenn Newman. So wholesale changes as we become expected of as we count into the final 5 minutes. Going into the dummy half position is Tideman. And Tideman says, I'll go up the centre. I'll take the workload up as we have another replacement player for the Knights warming up in jumper number 47. There's Paul Davies. Well, they're playing basketball with it, the Knights at the moment. Away to Driscoll. Driscoll's got a good turn of speed, Damien Driscoll. He's met by the defence, though, and called upon to play the football just near the quarter. Last tackle's there for the Knights. The ball's put high in the air. It's gone straight up, just about straight down. Tideman caught it. A nice ball back to Storey. Storey, in turn, found the support of Edwards. Edwards got it away. The Knights keep it alive. Again, Storey going towards the line, and over the top pass picked up by Gould. Try! Oh, fantastic stuff from the Knights. They were on their last tackle. Everybody had a go at it. Now stay with it live. Now they're into it. Stay on screen because there was a bit of push and shove and it started to erupt as we now go to the replay. Well, everybody had a hand in it. That was Storey. Storey, I told you, played basketball to Driscoll. Driscoll went down the eastern touchline. He takes that first tackle, then he's met by the defence. Now they send it back inside. The ball went high into the air. Now, Stephen Crowe was the player that took it, I believe. Or yes, it was Crowe. Now, he kept it alive. It was with Edwards there. Edwards, in turn, was with Brunker. Brunker got it to Storey. Storey tried to get it over the top. It was never meant for Gould. It was actually going to Shane Mackley. He couldn't position himself in the air for it, and Gould collected it and scored the try. From right in front, Adrian Brunker has been asked to reposition the football. Referee said he had it positioned in the incorrect spot. But what a great try for the Knights in the 31st minute mark of the second half. And in his first full game for this President's Cup side, Tony Gould has been rewarded with a 4-pointer. And I told you about the razzle-dazzle stuff that South produced only a couple of minutes earlier coming down the western touchline. And the Knights will have another look at it, I hope. Brunker's kicked it, 4 from 6 for Brunker. He's been replaced. He's heading straight towards the touchline. There was the first set of hands after the kick. That's the second. That's the third. That's the fourth. That's the fifth. That's the sixth. And that's the try. And the scoreline, 24-10. The Newcastle Knights over the South Sydney Rabbits. And it hasn't been the convincing victory we saw last year at the Sydney Football Stadium, but it's still been a pretty good win to the Newcastle Knights. The kick-off taken. Tries mightn't be over yet as Woodward takes it on the volley. We're into the final 2 minutes of play. He's over the corner, Woodward. He's got plenty of speed. He comes to the fullback, puts it on the toe, collected. I told you the tries weren't over for the Knights, and he's away, Wayne Thompson. Try number 5, Newcastle Knights. And I told you, after the kick-off, when Jeff Woodward collected the football, that we hadn't seen all the tries from the Newcastle Knights because South Sydney are in disarray, and the Newcastle Knights from the kick-off. It went straight down. Woodward took it on the volley. Now, he's got great speed, great skills, Woodward. He made an error here, but he didn't pay for the error. He put the kick in. He shouldn't have. He should have just given it to this man, Thompson, to start with. It didn't matter. He raced away. Try number 5 for the Henny Penny Knights in this game, and coming up to kick the goal, or at least attempt to do so, will be Stephen Storey. I'll take a break. Stephen Storey with his first attempt of the afternoon. Adrian Brunker, of course, kicked 4 from 6. Storey coming in there, it fell off the mound. But by my way of thinking, we've had time, so you'll hear the full-time siren go in the background. So I'll start to tell you who scored the tries. For the losers, and they are the losers now, Christian Lenton and Rod O'Brien scored tries. Mark Bacon, 1 from 1. Stephen Storey, in fact, has got 1 from 1 also. Adrian Brunker has got 4 from 6. Now have a look at the replay of the try. It went over the head of Storey, collected by Jeffrey Woodward. Now he came down. He beat the first 3 tacklers. Now he nearly murdered it here. That was nearly murder of a try. He always had Thompson outside of him. Thompson took the chip kick. He started cheering before he got to the line. He placed it down and scored the try. The try scorers for the Knights were Adrian Brunker 1, Tony Gould 1, Wayne Thompson 1, Jeff Walters 2. I told you Brunker kicked 4 from 6. You see the score on your screen, 30 points to 10. The Knights over South Sydney, and remember, we told you that the tries weren't over with 2 minutes to go. We'll be back shortly with all the action of the reserve grade game.